Welcome to councillors, members of the public and staff, present in person, joining online and watching online this evening. The time being 6:31 p.m, I declare the ordinary council meeting of 25 March 2025 open. Persons in the gallery are advised that under the Local Government Act 1993, a person may not tape the recording or tape record the proceeding of a meeting of council or committee without the authority of the council or committee. Tape record includes a video camera and an electronic device capable of recording speech. Mobile phones must be turned off so as not to disrupt the meeting. Anyone, including councillors, found using a mobile phone will be asked to leave the meeting immediately and for the duration of the meeting. An audio recording of this meeting will be taken for minute-taking purposes as authorised by the Local Government Act 1993. This meeting is live streamed on Council's website to allow the community to follow Council debates and decisions without the need to attend meetings in person. Members of the public attending or speaking at a meeting agree to have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded and publicly broadcast. Strathfield Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of a meeting. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be streamed. Councillors and members of the gallery, please note that the microphone for streaming purposes is sensitive and will record all sounds in the room. The mayoral diary for March 2025 and expenses claimed by all councillors has been tabled for your information as per Resolution 14719. Councillors, in accordance with the mandatory provisions of the Model Code of Conduct, I remind councillors of the obligation that you will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of your ability and judgment. Moment of reflection. I would now like to ask everyone who is able to stand for the moment of reflection. We pray that our deliberations today will be objective and decisions are impartial and made for the benefit of the whole community. Let us begin by acknowledging the Wongal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting is being held. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. You can now all resume your seats. There are no apologies. Are there any councillors seeking a leave of absence? No. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosure of interest? Councillor Pensabene.
Yes, I'd like to disclose that in open forum tonight, my husband is one of the speakers, Tony Pensabene, and the interest is non-pecuniary and non-significant, and I will be staying in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any further councillors wishing to make a conflict of interest? No? Excellent. The confirmation of minutes from the last meeting, the ordinary council meeting, the 25th of February 2025. Acknowledgements. Sorry, apologies all. We'll do acknowledgements first. Any acknowledgements from the councillors? Councillor Kim.
During Seniors Week, I attended the Mason Park Wetland guided tour with Benjamin Kai. I acknowledge the Friends of Mason Park Wetland for their ongoing effort to educate the local community collaboratively with the Strathfield Council to restore the wetland ecology, to bring back the local waterbird and the intercontinental migratory shorebirds. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I have some acknowledgements if no one else has any. No? Okay. To mine. My acknowledgements are that, my acknowledgement is acknowledging the successful Citizen and Youth Citizen of the Year. This was meant to be tabled at the last meeting, but as you know, I wasn't present. the Strathfield Citizen of the Year, Mr. Akil Verma, and Strathfield Youth Citizen of the Year, Mr. James Craigie. I'm so delighted to have had the opportunity to honour these two locals who have exemplified a strong spirit of service in Strathfield and the broader community. I was lucky to sit down with both of them at different times and discuss their ideas, views and plans to continue serving in Strathfield. Congratulations to both of them on their achievements. And I'll note they've both openly agreed to help where they can throughout this year in their roles. And Mr. Akil Verma has spoke at our most recent citizenship ceremony, as well as at our seniors event, morning tea. So congratulations to both of those. I look forward to working with them. Moving on. No further acknowledgements. Great. Confirmation of minutes. As you know, I was absent. Can I have a mover? Councillor Reddy, a seconder. Councillor Kim. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Mayoral minutes. My first mayoral minute today comes from the Australian Local Government Association. I move that Council supports the National Federal Election funding priorities identified by the Australian Local Government Association, ALGA, and supports and participates in the Put Our Communities First federal election campaign, and writes to the local federal members of Parliament, all known election candidates in local federal electorates, and the President of the Australian Local Government Association, expressing support for ALGA's federal election funding priorities. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? That being the case, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. 7.2. This relates to the adjustment of the budget for the Gapyong trip. I'll read the background. Given the long-standing sister-city relationship between Strathfield and Gapyong, and in light of the soon-to-be erected Battle of Gapyong Memorial at Ismay Reserve, Strathfield Council will accept the invitation from the Mayor of Gapyong City to visit in May this year. As per the sister city arrangement, Strathfield councillors in the past have warmly welcomed various mayors and delegations from Gapyong City biennially. Council has previously spent exorbitant amounts on hosting this delegation, with last year's single day of festivities costing roughly $15,000 under former Mayor Councillor Pensabene, where the immoderate Olivetta restaurant was booked out for a large dinner event. Strathfield Council has reciprocated this delegation, visiting Gapyong each other year. Most recently, this was attended by former Mayor Councillor Blackmore, who has also expressed his enthusiastic support for the sister city relationship and has spoken fondly of his trip there 2 years ago. All this in mind, and with great reverence to our sister city, it should be resolved that no exorbitant cost can be justified alongside Strathfield Council's current focus on financial sustainability and responsible spending. Therefore, the budget for councillors to attend the sister city trip ought to be reduced to a total cost of under $15,000, as has been done in previous years. Additionally, councillors will personally cover the cost of their flights to and from Korea, or they can use the balance of their personal travel allowance. That along with these councillors, only the General Manager will attend as a representative of the staff and council organisation, and that following this trip, a reflection on the strength of the relationship is provided by the Mayor. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Nosworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've had a week, I believe, to read Notice of Motion 10.8, which says almost identical wording. Can you just highlight to me and the other councillors why we need two motions or a minute and a motion for the exact same thing?
Councillor, this minute was drafted well before you put your nomination in.
Follow-up question. Why was it not provided to councillors well before this meeting? It was put on my desk as of this evening.
It's a mayoral minute. I'm totally within my right to act in such a way.
Question. A mayoral minute needs to be a...
Councillor, you're out of order.
I believe I'm allowed to ask questions.
You've had a statement and you've had a follow-up question. That's all I'll allow for tonight. Moving on. Councillor Pensabene.
Yes, I thought mayoral minutes were used just for urgent situations, and I think we had the motion already put into the business papers. So I was wondering why this was such an urgent situation.
Thank you, Councillor.
And also how did you come about this mayoral minute? Is it because of the public scrutiny that you've received in the media?
Thank you, Councillor Pensabeni. We'll get to the media in a moment. Councillor, it is of great urgency. Firstly, the motion, I believe, it's my view, that the motion that was put forward, the rescission motion, does not go far enough to identify how this trip ought to be funded. It's not mentioned in the rescission motion that you signed that councillors will pay for their own flights. That is mentioned in my mayoral minute. I'm of the view that councillors should pay for their own flights or use what's in their councillor travel allowance. And so I believe my motion, my mayoral minute, which is of great urgency as we are looking to book flights sooner rather than later, does what is needed to the benefit of the community in ensuring that the community is not suffering the cost of us fulfilling our sister city obligations. Follow-up question, Councillor.
Why weren't we informed of this mayoral minute prior to the meeting?
That's not needed for a mayoral minute, Councillor.
Sorry?
That's not needed for a mayoral minute. Notice is not required. Now, before we vote on the, any councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion? No. Before we go, I have a question for Councillors Nosworthy and Pensabene. I'm concerned about recent public statements made to the media which appear to be intentionally misleading. As councillors, we each have a responsibility to represent the facts accurately and uphold the reputation and trust placed in this council by our community. Misrepresenting the truth not only undermines informed public debate, but also erodes the integrity of our collective decision-making. I urge all councillors to exercise greater care in their public communications and to refrain from statements that may mislead the public or misrepresent council decisions. That being said, I refer to the following comments, first by Councillor Nosworthy, who said to the Sydney Morning Herald, "Residents are paying more, getting less with this council." And to Councillor Pensabene, who said to the Sydney Morning Herald, "Significantly higher costs at a time when our community is grappling with rising council rates." Councillors, you are both aware, having both been present at the relevant workshops, that the budget allocates a reduction in residential council rates and a new pathway forward as per the work done in response to my mayoral minute from October 2024. Can you please explain why, having been through the briefings and discussions associated with the current freeze on residential rates, you have chosen to mislead the public? Councillor Nosworthy.
Mr Mayor, what percentage of the rate's going down this year, just to clarify if I've made an error in my comments?
Councillor, what you've said to the public is that the rates are going up. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
That's not the words I used.
I can tell you that residents are paying more, getting less with this council.
Correct, and I'm asking how much less are residents paying in the coming year for their council services?
Thank you for the comment, Councillor. If you don't listen in briefings, I can't do anything about that. Councillor Pensabene.
I concur with everything that I've said to the Sydney Morning Herald. The budget for the Gappion meeting was $70,000.
Councillor, it's not relevant to the question that's been put forward. You've said that significantly higher costs and rising council rates. Can you clarify what you meant by rising council rates?
Last year we had a rising rate.
Point of order, Councillor Nosworthy.
Mr Mayor, you cut me off when I was asking questions, so at what point do you exceed your allocation of questions in this matter?
I've asked a question, I'm seeking a response. Once the response is given, I can move on. Councillor Pensabene, would you like to continue?
When I was rudely interrupted in regarding to my answer, rising costs for the council is amongst the whole council. We all know that the costs of council is rising, and we all know that this is not our money, Mr Mayor.
Council rates, okay.
Yes, we've had a rise in council rates in the last 12 months, Mr Mayor. If you don't pay rates, I don't know what you do. But the
Yourself, Councillor, I actually do pay rates because I live in Strathfield.
And I do pay rates as well, Councillor.
All right.
We, in the last 12 months, have had a council rate. You cannot argue with that. And we are spending ratepayers' money. This is not our money. And this is why we have to scrutinise what we spend and how we spend it. I have never, ever given any information to the Sydney Morning Herald or any other organisation that hasn't been correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I move that we vote for the... Councillor, time's expired. Councillor, does anyone wish to speak for or against this motion further? No? Thank you. I now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillors, carried unanimously. The next mayoral minute. I move that the select parking permit grace period be extended until the end of April 2025, and that a report be prepared for the May 2025 ordinary meeting into A, the cost of expanding the single dwelling allowance from two free permits to 4 free permits. B, the cost of retaining the multi-dwelling allowance at 2 free permits per household. C, the establishment of support hubs to aid elderly locals or those without computer access or literacy to make a valid application. 3, that the program be adjusted so that all valid mobility parking permit holders be granted an additional 30 minutes of parking time. And 4, that signage is attached to each parking meter to educate locals about the new scheme and the availability of residential parking permits. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Nosworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if maybe we should amend it to include adding the effect of adding more permits to the turnover time, the dwell time, basically the congestion that might be caused. So if I could suggest an amendment to 2A.
As mover, I reject the amendment, so we'll have to go to a
What
vote.
I'm going to say, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to put the amendment to a vote?
You've already rejected it. You're the mover of the motion, sir.
Would you like to suggest a shadow?
That's fine. You've made your mind up.
The mayor's got his chains on tonight.
All right, any other councillors wishing to speak for or against?
Just a question, actually.
Thank you, councillor.
Through the Chair. In relation to the mobility parking permit, my understanding is that anyone that has the mobility parking permit can park in the parking spaces basically unlimited.
Yeah.
So I don't see the need to have an extension on any time if they are allowed to park there.
Point of order. Mobility parking spaces, if they're marked 60 minutes, they're only allowed 60 minutes. They don't have any extra hours. If they're not marked, they can stand unlimited.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor, would you like to continue your question, or does that satisfy?
If I can get an answer from one of the
Chair,
the directors.
The director, yeah.
The other one, just the other
Yep.
question is about, so what you're proposing is for every house in the LGA, that they would be able to get 4 permits instead of 2, so every single house?
Yes, that have vehicles. The report, we're asking for a report into if they can increase up to 4 free permits per house. So under normal circumstances, councillor, the permit allows for more than 2 permits per household, but they're paid. This is for further free permits per household. Would you like to ask a question to the chair?
Just a subsequent question. So with that, is that, because I know we do have the system where residents have currently have a visitor's permit if they're in a parking scheme, so would that be to replace that visitor's permit?
It's a good question. It'll have to be reflected in the report. If so, may I ask the director to speak to that question? If it's a replacement?
Sorry. Do you want to repeat the question? Can we just add that in? Would you be happy to add that?
I'm happy to add it in. Thank you, councillor. Yeah, it'll be taken on notice.
Yeah. Sorry, can I get an answer just about the mobility
and
parking confirmation, if we have some?
The director relating to mobility parking, clarification. Oh,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. If it's up to, if a mobility stick is used up to 2 p, they can stay there for free. Anything over that could be an issue. I can take notice and come back to you.
Now, 2p you get 4 hours,
That's right, yes.
and then
I'm just not sure that the 30 is...
30 minutes. I don't think there is mobility parking that's 30 minutes. Yeah.
thank you. And we'll cover that off in the report. Thank you to the GM. Councillors, does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion or ask any questions? That being the case, I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried. Unanimously. Items by exception in accordance... Sorry, there is a... I am missing one. Hang on, where are we here?
Missed?
Oh yes, I missed one. Hilarious. Okay. Councillors, I move that council immediately pause any works on the installation of the mist treatment at High Street and Amaroo Avenue, Strathfield, for a period of 2 months to trial the efficacy of the already installed stop signs, and that the Traffic Committee, after the 2-month period ends, reconsider the installation of the mist treatment in light of any incident data which has occurred in that time, with a report provided to the ordinary council meeting in June. The background is that the installation of stop signs has prevented any incidents from occurring at this intersection, greatly satisfying residents, some of whom are present tonight, who were previously concerned. Residents are grateful to council for the work which has been done to change the, I think there's a typo there, change the give way signs into stop signs. However, we believe the installation of the mistreatment system will be a step too far. The mistreatment will change the character of the intersection and void a significant number of already limited parking places along the street. Councillors, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Blackmore?
Look, I understand there's a bit of resident issues with this. I will be voting against it. The reason I'm voting against it basically is because I have seen the footage of the accidents, and I believe that our staff have actually came up with the right solution, and we've passed it. I believe that if we actually vote for this matter, and there is an incident that happens, that there is a liability put on the council. So for that reason, I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further for or against? No. I might just add further to the background that in terms of the feedback from some of those who are present tonight, once the first stage of the instalment occurred, which is the stop signs, there's been no further incidents reported. So the stop signs have done their job. The additional inclusion of the islands is what residents are concerned by. Councillor Nosworthy?
Yeah, I just want to have a question through you to the director.
Yep.
Do we consider a two-month trial period long enough for a good data set to be collected?
Well, it's a tricky question.
Yeah,
I'll give it to the director.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I don't recommend the trial. I think we should go ahead and install the mist. I'd have serious concerns if there was an accident during the trial. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone like to speak for or against the motion? No. That being the case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillors Kim, Reddy, Bellardi and Kai. All those against, Councillors Nosworthy, Pensabene and Blackmore. I declare the motion carried. Okay, items by exception. In accordance with Section 13 of the Council's Code of Meeting Practice, items can be dealt with by exception and they can be adopted as recommended by a single motion. I note the following items cannot be dealt with by exception. I'll ask the Director to intervene if she sees any further, but I believe it is just CCS4 which has to be voted on tonight and cannot be voted on by exception. Is that correct? No, all good. CCS4, which is the report on possible geographic. Yeah. Thank you. Councillors, we've already voted on the minutes. All right. 10.1, I'll pull it out. 10.2, I'll pull it out. 10.3, 10.4. I think there's a doubling up of 10.4 there. 10.5, pull it out. 10.6, out. 10.7, 10.8, out. Actually, I think it has to be pulled out, but anyway, we've dealt with that. GMU 1, CCS 1, CCS 2, CCS 3, CCS 4 has to come out, CCS 5, CCS 6, PE 1, PE 2, I'll take PE 3 out, PE 4.
Can I take that one out?
Sorry?
Can I take that one out?
PE 4, yep. Did that today. PE 5, yep. EO 1, EO 2, EO 3, I'll take that out. Hang on. Actually, I'll redact the PE3. I meant EO3.
I'll take it out, thank you.
You'll take out PE3?
Which one?
PE3.
All right, we'll keep it out then, Councillor.
PE3.
PE3 and EO3, just to clarify. 12.1, 12.2, 12.3. No, good. All right. So let's get to it. Oh no, that. Okay. I need to go through this. It's been heavily. You're Yeah. Okay, let's go. I move that the items mentioned be dealt with by exception. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Reddy. I now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. All right, public forum. We now have 2 speakers registered today to address the meeting. Speakers are reminded that they have 3 minutes to address council on their item of interest, with a possible 2-minute extension if approved by the meeting. Speakers are advised that in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice, they cannot ask questions of council, councillors or staff. A councillor, through the chair, may ask questions of the speaker as long as it is direct, succinct and without argument. All right. First, we have Mr. Tony Pensabene, who has requested to speak in open forum about, quote, evolving pattern of behaviour of certain councillors. Would Mr. Pensabene please come forward to address the meeting?
Thank you. Good evening. Once again, I am here as a concerned ratepayer, troubled by the conduct that undermines our council's integrity and inclusivity. On October the 8th last year, Councillor Pensabene... to the public speaker, the matter you've just brought up is, you're unable to speak on it because under the Code of Meeting Practice, members of the public are not permitted to speak or make statements about breaches of Code of Conduct, and that particular matter has been dealt with by Code of Conduct. How do you know that?
Because you've just begun speaking on that particular matter. That has been dealt with by Code of Conduct.
I don't understand what you're saying.
The,
Where have I said this is under a code of conduct?
that issue has been dealt with by a Code of Conduct, which means that you're unable to speak on that matter in the public forum of this meeting.
On that particular matter?
On that particular matter, yes.
So therefore, does the code of conduct outcomes, am I allowed to allow the...
No, you can't speak on that.
Actually tell the council and the people the outcome of the code of conduct.
That's also prohibited by the Code of Conduct, yes. You're very welcome to speak on other matters. Your time is
That's fine.
yeah.
Fine, that's,
So we know there's a code of conduct.
yes.
Which has been dealt with. Sorry.
I thought that was privileged information.
Well, not any longer. That's right. So I have to stop you there if that's what you're intending to speak on.
But I'm not speaking on the code of conduct.
No, you're speaking on a matter that's been dealt with by a Code of Conduct, which is prohibited by the Code of Conduct.
Okay. So therefore, I'll move to my second point.
Okay.
Now, I'm guessing the timer is no longer of any relevance. So now,
Pause when you were... Yeah.
I'll move to the International Women's Day incident, when Mayor Bellardi seems to have accused federal MP Sally Zito of politicising her speech. Video evidence and media reports disproves his opinion. Whilst my mayor patronising another well-respected leader, and that's reference to the first point which I can't speak about, on a day celebrating women's achievements is deeply concerning to me as a ratepayer. When we consider these 2 incidents, it is hard not to see a pattern emerging, where female leaders appear to be marginalised, disrespected, or unfairly targeted. This is beneath our council's standards. In closing, I ask you to reflect for reflection and accountability. A formal public apology to Councillor Pensabene and a commitment to fair participation for all. Mayor Bellardi's reflection and consideration of an apology for his unfounded criticism of Ms. Zito, and collectively a renewed commitment to inclusivity, respect and dignity for every member in this council. Strathfield community deserves better than currently being offered. I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just before you move on. I'm aware I'm allowed to ask a question of the Speaker. Am I allowed to ask a question of you, or is that prohibited?
No, of the Speaker. Thank you. Now, Mr. Angus Carl Stewart has requested to speak in open forum about Item PE1, and encouraging council laws to adopt the staff suggestion. I note that.
At this point, you mentioned going to I was just talking about phone calls or not. Mind if I use this for everyone else?
Yeah, no, please go ahead. I might also add before you begin that I take the criticism laid upon me by the Sydney Yimby who made things very public, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here to speak in favour of the council's report in response to the Mayoral Minute from the 10th of December, 2024. Which was the suggestion to have 2 car parks per dwelling. When you're looking to reduce congestion, the last thing you want to do is increase availability of parking. I'm a resident of Olympic Park, and I'm pretty familiar with congestion on a regular basis. And every time I want to leave by a bus on the wrong time of day, it's a nightmare. And well, Strathfield doesn't have events like Olympic Park. The principles still kind of apply. When you guarantee 2 parking spots per dwelling, you guarantee more cars on the road, more drop-offs by car, more trips to shops by car, and more peak hour congestion. This is the induced demand the staff refer to in their report, and it comes back to the parking. Not only will this fail to address the congestion, the parking max minimums, as suggested, will act as a tax on current and future residents. The increased construction costs will reduce residual land value or property values for existing homeowners in the event they choose to sell it to a developer, because the money that would have otherwise gone to their property value is now being used to pay for the parking that they're required to supply. New residents looking to live in the LGA station will have to pay for a parking spot they may not even wanted in the first place. With reduced construction feasibility per dwelling, local renters will face an increase in rents from foreseeable evaporation of housing supply. We've all seen someone asking for change outside Strathfield Plaza. Homelessness isn't like a distant issue, it's happening here in the LGA. While rent reductions from supply single-handedly cannot provide help, you need assistance these people need. Approaching planning irrespectively of affordability will only push more people down this path. And for what? To subsidise the lifestyle of those who don't drive, to punish those who don't, whilst raising the cost of housing and undermining the livability of the LGA in the process. It's for all these reasons the state government has introduced the non-discretionary parking standards that nullify the initial motion. As they reduce unnecessary construction costs, they improve construction feasibility, they tackle housing affordability, and they make it easier for all residents of New South Wales to live near the infrastructure they're paying for. But between suggestions like this, taking developers to the LAC over build to rents or co-living places near train stations, opposite stations, and the fact that Strathfield is the 4th worst performer in terms of housing targets of all the councils within Greater Sydney, is this part of that strategy? Is this in line there? Or is this just like, I'm sorry, I'm going to swear, but it's not really helpful for reaching the housing targets, and
the time's consent.
I really encourage just to reflect or consider what the implications are going to be for housing affordability, and just for the other people who are affected, not just renters who might want to live here or home buyers who want to live here, but existing residents as well. I think are going to be affected in ways you may not have anticipated. And if the mayor is generally just the main priority is to actually address this congestion and increase availability of off-street parking. The council staff has actually provided some pretty good suggestions. I encourage you to take them at whole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. Council will take that in consideration. Thank you for speaking tonight. I note that what you've said is more or less in line with what the report does say, so thank you for speaking to that point. Now to the notices of motion. We'll begin with 10.1. Councillor Blackmore, you have moved this motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Reddy. Councillor, would you like to speak for your motion?
I move the motion as written. This is about a return to traditional style podium car parks for multi-dwelling apartments. Councillors, if you have a look at our town centre, which is a prime example, the last buildings built in there were over 20 years ago, and you look at the Meriton apartment, Sandalwood, and Regal Court Apartments are two good examples. Churchill Avenue, actually 30 to 34, of very, very good examples of podium-style parking where the developers are not excavating beneath the ground. What this does, and from what I understand, obviously I want to report to get a better understanding of this, is obviously providing the natural ventilation for the car parking rather than digging down and or having all the mechanical devices for ventilation, pumps for waterproofing issues that they have in the basement and flooding. These above ground car parks, which is the traditional style or old style way of building, is far more cost effective than when they actually build a basement. The gentleman kindly just spoke about the affordability of housing in the area. The problem is, and he kind of hit the nail on the head, that it isn't feasible. So if there's a way that council can actually work to provide a more traditional approach to allow the issue, from what I understand, and again the report will give us a bit more clarity, the builders don't want to build above ground parking with a podium with maybe shops on the bottom or units on the bottom or terraces or something like that, because the car parking spots then become including the floor space calculation, which means that they can't actually build more units. Hence, if we're asking for a lot more parking as well, makes the problem even worse. So I would ask everyone if we can get this, a report on this. I think that we do have a housing crisis. If we can find ways to make certain properties and certain buildings more feasible, it will be a way that it does make feasible development and actually makes a bit of movement happen. We've had 18,000 across our area in Part of Canada Bay Council, 18,000 dwellings rezoned by the state government, which probably won't be built in reality. The state government's also pushed the mid-rise housing step onto Homebush and Flemington Station to push more dwelling, and we've also got medium density, first time in Stratford's history, 1st of July, that we'll have to have duplexes and townhouses in our area. So the state government is pushing on us to provide housing. I just think this is a measure that could actually help to provide it and provide it in a way where we're not ending up with boarding houses everywhere. We're actually getting proper traditional units.
Thank you, Councillor. I might move an amendment, if you'll accept. Considering the council report or the commentary from the staff identified that I think it's the first point of the motion relating to the FSR falls short of achieving what I think you're setting out to achieve, I'll add a 5th point, if accepted, which is that taking into account the provision of a podium car parks arrangements, an investigation should be provided that considers the ability to effectively provide podium car parking, which takes into account the relevant building height controls for the residential flat buildings and mixed-use development. This should include the consideration of effective controls to incorporate the podium into the design. Do you accept?
I'll accept that, yeah.
Thanks, Councillor. So that becomes the motion. Any other councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Reddy?
I would like to speak for the motion, and I'll be supporting this because there will be a significant cost decrease in the building cost, which will be passed on to the residents. So I'll be supporting this.
Councillor, any further councillors wishing to speak for or against?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, is that an additional point?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that's...
Yeah. Which I think does what your point about efforts are fall short doing. Yeah. Furthermore, that being the case, no councillors wishing to speak for or against. Councillor Nosworthy. Point of order, Councillor Nosworthy. Thank you. We will take it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. 10.2. Councillor Blackmore, you have moved this motion. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Reddy. Councillor Blackmore, would you like to speak for your motion?
This is basically, there's been a bit of talk in the area, I think there was a petition going around as well, just about the local sporting clubs and the cost of the energy. So basically what I'm asking for, I move the motion as written, is that by May ordinary council meeting, we have a report into the current financial year energy related costs to our local sporting clubs what the cost was in the previous financial year, and if we are going to provide a discount to these clubs, what other services or activities that the council's operating that aren't as important can be cut back to pay for that subsidy if there is one needed.
Councillor, I'll move an alternate motion, which I'll read out. I move that a report be provided to a council meeting in preparation for the 2026 winter sports season to A, lower fees or provide a discounted fee for seasonal hire of sports fields for local Strathfield-based non-for-profit sporting groups who have been long-term regular hirers of our sports fields, which is defined as more than 5 consecutive seasons. B, identifying any opportunities or options for where the level of service and associated costs with providing and maintaining our sports fields.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, don't mean to interrupt. I've just noticed a non-pecuniary conflict of interest. My employer hires a number of Strathfield sports fields. As it's non-pecuniary, non-certificate, I'll remain in the room. But
Thank you, Councillor.
Actually, should also non-pecuniary, non-significant.
Sure.
My daughter does play for a local sporting club.
Great.
So I'll stay in the room.
Thank you, councillors. I'll go from B, identifying any opportunities or options where the level of service and associated costs with providing and maintaining our sports fields can be reduced in real terms to offset the potential reduction in revenue associated with any discounts that might be provided. C, identifying options for the sporting groups to manage the use of the sports fields lights based on actual required usage, to allow the sporting groups to turn the lights on and off only for the periods they are required, and to be charged based on the periods of usage only to the nearest hour. 2, that council writes to the New South Wales Minister for Sports and the New South Wales Premier to request the reintroduction of the $100 Active Kids vouchers per child to support families in registering their children for active sport and to promote healthy and active lifestyle choices amongst children. And 3, that council provides a separate report to the May 2025 council meeting which considers allowing and encouraging our Strathfield-based local sporting clubs to apply for grants as part of council's small grants program to be used to offset the cost of registration for those families who can demonstrate they're experiencing genuine financial hardship. This is intended to provide targeted relief for Strathfield families who are doing it tough and want to keep their children involved in playing active sports within the area. That's the alternate motion. Do I have a seconder for the alternate motion? Councillor Blackmore, and I move that we vote to adopt the motion as the new motion, the alternate as the new motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. And now to vote for the new motion. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the new motion? No. That being the case, we'll move to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 10.5, transparency for international and long-distance travel. Councillor Nosworthy, you have moved this motion. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Pensabene. Councillor, would you like to speak for your motion?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware, obviously, we have made amendments to the Sister City trip, which is in the rationale on our agenda. So apologies for the timing of that. It is of my opinion that if you are a small business and the ATO has to get this information off of you when you claim a tax deduction, it makes sense that we should be providing the same information when we're also using taxpayer-funded or ratepayer-funded money. It makes sense to me that we keep a clear record of what we're doing on the time we are on council trips or at council events such as the Australian Local Council Association or the Local Government New South Wales conferences. As again, we are, as previously mentioned for your mayoral minutes, we are using taxpayers or ratepayers in this case money, and therefore we should be held accountable about what we're doing while we are on those trips funded by our ratepayers.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against the motion? No, that being the case, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillors Pensabene and Nosworthy. All those against, please raise your hands. Councillors Kim, Reddy, Kai, Bellardi, and absence from Councillor Blackworthy. The motion is carried. Moving on, 10.6, Councillor Nosworthy, having moved this motion, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, hang on, you have moved this motion, is there a seconder? Councillor Pensabene. Councillor Nosworthy would like to speak.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions. How many questions am I allowed? Got half earlier.
Questions, Councillor.
Pardon?
Depends on the questions.
Oh.
No, you can ask a question, go ahead.
I'm not sure who this is directed to, but to the staff through the chair. For the point one, ICT devices, could I get a explanation perhaps of what that covers?
The General Manager, maybe. Yeah, Christine, sure.
I also note that there is an error that it's 3,000 per council term, not per year. So either way, we probably need to amend that.
Councillor. The General Manager will speak.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So the provision of $3,000 per council term for ICT devices is to cover the cost of things like the iPad that are issued to councillors, so that they can carry out their role as councillor, as well as some other IT related. So I think it also includes the costs such as your mobile phone and things like that. So those one-off devices that are issued to you.
Similar question for points 2 and 3. So through the chair, the ICT expenses and the communication expenses. So that similarly, it's already assigned to, let's say, our SIM card, or is it something we can then claim subsequent to the SIM card?
So the ICT expense is for all those other ancillary type expenses that you might occur on an annual basis. So things like printer cartridges, paper, and just replacement of ICT devices that might get damaged and replacement. So screen protectors for your phones, mobile phone covers, things that are going to happen throughout that 4-year term of council to protect the device and make sure that everything is able to function and be used properly.
So just the communication expenses, so is that already assigned in our, let's say, our 5G roaming, or is that on top of?
Yes, so again, through you, Mr. Mayor, so the communication expenses is there for councillors who choose to use their own device for the uses of a mobile phone. So if you choose not to accept the council issued phone, you could claim on a monthly basis up to $220 for the mobile phone expense that you might incur personally.
We'll just go to another question on the...
Based on, to the chair, based on these motions, I have asked the management team, to do a bit of homework. I can find out, our council, since our elected in this term, there's no expenses on the ICT and the carers expenses and others. Only things we are spending only our business card and a little bit of the travel allowance, just totally only less than $1,000. So I think as a councillors, we are very careful for the taxpayers' money and look after our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nosworthy.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment. Oh, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
That's all right. Can I just remove the ICT devices out of the motion, please?
Councillor?
May I speak or?
Sure, go ahead.
So, thank you, Councillor Chai, my mistake. Whilst I agree with you, we have been quite controlled in our spending so far. I'm not sure why they need to remain there if we're not using them.
Just quickly a point of order, Councillor, before you continue. If I could just check with the seconder that you accept the change of the motion. Accepted. Please continue.
If it's an unused allocation, let's get rid of it. Let's reappropriate it for a better use. I entirely agree. We're not using it, so it doesn't need to be there. All of the expenses I think remain up there are in excess of what we are provided, and what I would opine that we actually need to complete our duties as councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. I might very briefly speak to the motion and noting that it says Mayor's car up to $10,000. Not a cent has been declared yet, so we're on the right track. Any other councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion? We'll move on. Councillors will put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillors Pensabene and Osworthy. All those against, please raise your hands. Councillors Kim, Blackmore, Reddy, Bellardi and Kai. The motion is lost. We now go to 10.7. Oh, no, sorry, 10.8. Notice of rescission. How do we do that? Just in terms of the...
Withdraw the rescission.
Okay, we have a withdrawal from the rescission. Okay, well, we have a withdrawal from the rescission. We'll move on. It's lost.
If only one person withdraws, it's out, right?
It's out anyway, because there's only 3 signatories. Withdrawn and lost. Moving on.
Just withdrawn.
Withdrawn, and it's not carried.
Withdrawn before.
Moving on. CCS 4, I believe, is next. Report on possible geographic names board application. Now, this is to pick the design we would best believe is suited to a potential renaming of or alteration of the boundaries of within our municipality. So if the options are shown, sorry. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Reddy. I don't necessarily feel compelled to speak to the motion, but I believe councillors are aware of the various options. Now, without making a mistake, I believe it's option 1 that I personally would put forward as what I'm moving, that is accepted by the council. Notwithstanding, there are plenty of views on this particular matter, but I remind councillors that this motion, if carried, simply goes as a recommendation, but significant community consultation is then done by the State Department before any decisions are made, which would most likely then come back to council and reflect the views of both the State Department and residents living within those boundaries and around them. So, any speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Nosworthy.
First, Mr. Mayor, it says it's going to cover the cost of $25,000. So we're going to install a bunch of new signs and a bunch of new signage for $25,000 for a purpose I'm not clear on. It says in our report that we were briefed on in our workshop that we have to prove that it's not solely for the purpose of, altering real estate values. Quick Google found out that Strathfield postcodes have a significantly higher housing price than Homebush postcodes. So I feel like it would be difficult to prove that the only motivation behind this isn't that differential. I'm unsure what the motivation is beyond that at this point. So if the State Department was to call me, I would have to plead ignorance because I don't see the purpose of shrinking Homebush in.
Were you at the briefing, councillor?
I was. But none of those reasons seem to make any sense to me. So if you'd like to ask one of the councillors to provide an explanation for their motivation. But
I'm happy to speak to the point. Is it possible to have the first option presented, or is that difficult? No? Is it available in front of councillors? Do they have the agenda? Yep. Councillors, as you can see in the in option 1's diagram, the chainsaw-looking boundaries that currently divide Strathfield and Homebush are very obscure. And the point of this motion as a recommendation to the State Department is to have a clean-cut boundary between our suburbs. I think the average citizen of Strathfield and Homebush probably couldn't tell you or even draw on a map, let alone draw on a map, where the two suburbs start and finish. The idea is to have something that is recognisable, whether it's a geographic landscape like the rail line, which I believe is the recommendation, or if it's a road. At the moment it cuts in and around houses and various properties, not aligned to any roads. On the comment about housing and price changes, I'm not sure if that causes a conflict at all, councillors, to one of our councillors, but I'll make a comment there. I think the differential on units is very different to the differential on houses, and the area which is being dealt with Homebush is predominantly, I dare to say the vast majority, if not all of which, covers units. And the differential of prices between units in Strathfield and Homebush, I think we'd be surprised to know is not anywhere near the price differential of houses. That's my commentary on that. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I'll allow it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I understand your preference for a unified border, perhaps a railway line or a street, as you say. Option 2 does use a street, and it reduces the loss of Homebush significantly. I think I made the comment in the briefing as well that Homebush Village, Homebush Public School and Homebush Boys High School will all now be in Strathfield, which seems like a misnaming in the opposite direction. So if I was forced to choose one of these, I think option 2 is the least destructive and destructive of the Homebush identity. But again, that would be a road that would fit your criteria. But
thank you, Councillor. That'll be dealt with by the state. Councillors will put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillors Kim, Reddy, apologies, Kai, Bellardi and Blackmore. All those against, Councillors Pensabene and Osworthy, the motion is carried. Now dealing with EO3. Oh, sorry. That's apologies. PE3, Homebush Movement and Place Connectivity and Streetscape Upgrade Project, amended design. Councillors, I have an alternate motion to the report that I will put forward, which I believe can be reflected. Oh, sorry. What are we doing?
yeah, I think we're on the wrong one.
Driving range. Oh, sorry, Councillor. This is Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Blackmore, would you like to speak to the motion?
Hudson Park.
PE3, yes.
P3 is Hudson.
You pulled it out of the matrix, Councillor.
It's the,
Which one?
he pulled it out by mistake. No, he did.
You pulled that out.
And then he put
And then I put it back in and you took it. That's okay. Well, if
vote on it?
no of you, okay, Council, we'll go to a vote. I'll move the motion. Councillor Reddy seconds. We will go to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Now to, I think, what we're all excited about, which is, oh no, one more before that. Councillor Nosworthy, you pulled out P4, I believe. Would you like to speak to?
Yeah, just very quickly. Let me just get my page numbers quickly. There was some of it in Latin, which I was just a bit confused about. Page 224 and 225, so...
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, delete those pages. I guess if we all read it, we would know that, but that's fine. And this, I might be I don't know what the right word is. Action 13 talks about increasing public and active transport. Slightly concerns Strathfield, the current Strathfield Council maybe isn't living up to that action. Obviously we'll see it at, I believe, PE5, but we have decreased public transport and perhaps active transport won't grow as much as some of us hope.
Sorry, we're just trying to find the
Yeah,
Latin.
find the Latin.
No, we can see it. Yes, it's just some filler. It's a filler on the page. But thank you. If I could.
Get amended to delete those pages. I don't know.
Sure, Councillor. I'll just speak to the point. I met with the representatives and the from Resilient Sydney, and I think the objectives of what they're trying to achieve in bringing together the 33 councils across Sydney are good objectives to which, through myself, we are now a signatory, and I hope that we can continue to work with all of our Sydney councils to achieve good outcomes to prepare for all the shock factors such as floods, bushfires, pandemics, etc. in the future that Resilient Sydney was set up to deal with. So that's that. Councillors, any others speaking to for or against the motion? No, that being the case, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
P5.
P5.
Yes.
Pensabene.
Yes, I was just, after reading the report...
We just need a mover and a seconder, Councillor, to speak to it. Would you like to move? Seconded by Councillor Nosworthy.
Yes, just when we were distributing or asking councillors who would be representing council on committees, I don't think we ever sorted out who was going to represent council at the Cooks River.
I believe we did, Councillor.
Oh, did we? And who is
I
the...
believe it's Councillors Reddy and Kim.
Oh, so you've been going to the meetings?
It's all on Teams. So last meeting we had election. We chose a chair and deputy chair.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that dealt with, Councillor? Yeah. All right, well, you've moved it, but we'll go to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Now to EO3. Yeah, EO3. I will move EO3 with an alternate motion to begin, which can be reflected in the minutes. Hang on. Section 3, section 3, part 1. And also section 3, if the minute taker could, part 5, part 4. sorry, I think the part 9 should say part VI, not IV.
VI?
Yes, 6.
It does.
Yeah, now it does. Well, hang on, now it does. Great. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the motion?
Let's have a moment to review part 3, 5 and 6, is that all right? The ones we don't have money for.
Now, for the minute taker, I might just ask that you delete altogether point 4, 8 and 9 to reflect the alternate motion rather than reject the construction, just remove. The alternate motion is the removal of points 4, 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So section 3, part 1 as well, okay.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Nosworthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my concern is with section 3, part 1, just because it'll break up all the rest of what we're building, because we'll have comes out of Airy Park, turns right along the Crescent, and then there's just a break in it. So my concern would be that it's kind of losing that continuity through the Crescent. I don't have as big a issue with parts 5 and 6. But yeah, I might vote against it based on the fact that part 1 is not being constructed.
So 3.1.
Yeah,
Section 3, part 1.
I'm on the right section.
Sure. So just to clarify, it's the section between Subway Lane, I believe it is, and Rochester. Yes. The reason for my recommendation for removal of that section and the others is that they reduce key parking places in favour of a bike lane in high traffic areas where people will park and shop. And so whilst the current design is acceptable in all other areas, those areas in close proximity to shopping villages, namely Homebush Village and also the shops across from Homebush Station, I'm of the view, as per the alternate motion, that we should not be removing local parking places in favour of the bike lane. Councillors, anyone else wishing to speak for or against the motion? No, that being the case, I move to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried. Councillors Nosworthy, Pensabene, Kim, Reddy, Kai and Bellardi. All those against? Councillor Blackmore. Declare the motion carried.
That's it.
Matters of urgency, councillors. Does anyone have a matter of urgency they wish to bring before the meeting? If yes, can the councillor please provide a 1 to 2 sentence summary on why this issue is urgent? Moving on. There's nothing confidential tonight. All right. We will. There being no further business, councillors, I declare the meeting closed and the time being 7:33.